Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Mill Valley Film Festival and the conversation of the film Ladybugs. This is an active cinema film, and we are very lucky today. We have with us director of the film, Chris Russo. Thank you. And Chris has several of her film team members with us that she will let us introduce them now, and we'll start the conversation. Hi, Chris.
Hi, thank you so much for having us, Maribel, and thank you to the Mill Valley Film Festival for inviting my feature film. I'm so excited to be here and introduce the panel right now. On the call is Michael Katz, my lead producer on the film, Ladybugs. Michael's been with me through the entire process. I'm really grateful that he's joining us. Felicia Carbajal is one of the featured subjects in the documentary, and she also is the executive director of the Social Impact Center, which is one of the organizations we're going to be speaking about. And Genine Coleman is also joining us from Origins Council. Genine is the executive director as well, and very, very glad that we're here to share a little bit about these organizations and what their mission is.
Great, thanks. Chris, I'd like to start with you and perhaps with Michael. Sounds like you have been working together for a long time. How did you choose to make a film, well, not just about marijuana, which is already a hard subject, I feel, because we are not that, all the issues that you, for example, present in your film are there. But you choose these 6 characters and 6 entrepreneurs. And how did you find them, and when did the decision to make this film came to you?
Well, when legalization was on the ballot in 2016 in California, I saw we were about to have a major sea change in the economy and the way people were going to think about cannabis. And in my research, I found out, I was pleasantly surprised that there was a lot of women that were in the space as farmers, cultivators, and activists. And that prompted me to dig deeper. I interviewed a lot of women in this space. And it was fascinating to me because I wanted to portray women like you've never seen them before in the cannabis industry. We're used to seeing, this culture that's a bro culture dominated by men, and over the years, it's stoner culture. But what I was really seeing was very mindful community of women who were working really hard to change the space. And then all of a sudden, there were a lot of dramatic turns that were happening. After I had decided the stories that I wanted to tell, I interviewed, over 100 people. I wanted there to be a very diverse cast, diverse backgrounds to speak from different areas of life and of the industry. And so I chose the women that I chose. And then I saw all of this, stuff happening with the regulations, with big money coming into the space. And, when you make a documentary, you kind of just follow your curiosity. And what ended up happening was this, story about legalization in California through the eyes of these women, and how it was going to change, a culture that had started, the heritage of cannabis in California decades ago. So it was just kind of like I was following the story, and I met Michael, and maybe Michael can speak to it as well, how he saw the journey of the film.
Sure. Well, I was just excited when Chris began on the project, because I thought it was really a unique story and an important one, because you don't see that kind of narrative in the cannabis space. And honestly, you don't see a lot of that type of narrative anywhere. To watch the film now and to just be so, we've been immersed in it for years now, and to watch it and just to see everything that these women have gone through and the challenges that they've faced and the strength that they've shown. And, we're not used to seeing that much of that in one film from all women. And I don't know, and it's a shame that we're not, but I love that there is this ability to kind of really highlight the women who have been such an integral part of this space. And what we discovered as the film was progressing was the reality behind what we thought might wind up happening with cannabis legalization. And, unfortunately, as we see in the film, many of the issues that exist that have been outlined in the film are still very much happening. And so there is this opportunity to be able to educate folks about that reality and point them in a direction that they can impact it and make positive change as well.
Oh, great. Thank you, Michael. And maybe I'll start with you, Felicia. Of course, it's really exciting in the film to see you running for office. And at the end, of course, we're all, I think, very sad that didn't happen. But I'm sure maybe you can let us know a little bit of your experience doing that and a little bit of the current work you are doing as well.
Thank you so much for having us, Maribel. I'm super honored to be here. In terms of my run for office, I always remind people that those of us who come from historically underserved communities, like anytime we can be seen and be visible, it's important, right? So for me, I mean, if I tell you I didn't really want to run, I didn't want to do any of these things, it was really because my friends kept saying, well, we can't do those things, right? And I was like, well, hold on a second, we can do anything that we want to do, or at least try to do. I'll also add that I did end up becoming an appointed delegate for the 2 years. And so I experienced all of the things that I knew that I didn't want to, even as being first run. So I share that just to say, we talked about this a little bit, or you guys were talking about this a little bit, just the struggle, the push up this mountain, even with conversations that I was having with a lot of progressive people who are elected officials or who can influence elected officials. And it still bothered me. It bothered me enough to continue to do this work via the Social Impact Center and utilizing this vehicle. So the Social Impact Center, essentially, for me, it's part of my legacy, right? It's like what I never had. Spaces that were never created for people like me. So, our goal of creating a space where intersectional conversations can exist, not just cannabis centered, but that sit at all of the intersections. I mean, I've had such amazing conversations with young people, from undocumented to first generation to just so queer people who are like, wow, I didn't know this history. Or, man, I got arrested for a little bit of marijuana and, I'm undocumented and I'm eligible on a state level, but on a federal level, this could really hinder me and send me back home. And so, for me personally, I think I utilize this as an opportunity to put the foot on the gas with the Social Impact Center. So we have some amazing news. At the end of this month, we're going to be doing a big giant press conference with the district attorney's office to announce that we identified another 60,000 individuals who somehow were missed when the former district attorney did their sweep and identified 66,000 individuals. So, in terms of the work that we do at the Social Impact Center, I look at myself as an elder. I didn't want to be quite frank, but I was like, wow, there's all of these young people who care so much about this plant, like I was when I was young, and they want to be able to do great and amazing things. And so we just brought everybody on board, and we have these amazing dialogues surrounding the type of work we want to do. This year, we're going to be participating in the 4th annual National Expungement Week with National Expungement Works. Last year, we did an amazing job. We were able to help over 1,200 Angelenos receive varying forms of assistance, from legal relief to folks who are dealing with food and housing insecurity. And the queer community. I mean, for me, that was my crowning moment, is that I got to go hang out with Trans Latina Coalition and hang out with my friends, and to really be able to support the work that they're doing. But most importantly, we say that at the Social Impact Center that we're a bridge. I've been across lots of bridges where there's a toll keeper. Mm-hmm. We don't operate like that. Come on, I'm not going to do this by myself. I don't want to. All of you guys are going to come with me. And so I think it's afforded us a unique opportunity, especially in the city of Los Angeles, while we're talking about transformation, we're talking about these huge societal shifts, to just be able to just run with all of this. So I'm grateful that I have an amazing board and amazing young people who challenge me to think differently surrounding everything. And that they want this plant to feel, they want to feel liberated as somebody who utilizes this plant. They don't want to feel shame. They don't want to feel like they're second-class citizens surrounding just their use of cannabis. So for me, it's an exciting time, but those are a few of the things that I'm doing.
Great. Wow. Thank you, Felicia. That's a lot. And Genine, I also would like you to tell us a little bit of the work Origins Council does. I know you are in Ukiah, a total different part of California with its own challenges. So why don't you tell us a little bit about your work as well, Genine, please?
Sure. Thank you, Maribel. Thank you for having me. And it's an honor to be here with all of you. And the film's incredible. It's very moving for me. With respect to the work that we're doing, we founded Origins Council in 2019, really, sort of deep into the rollout of legalization and the impacts on the ground. Our organization has several scopes of work, from research, education, and advocacy is the primary focus of our organization. We represent rural producing communities and specifically the historic heritage producers who've been really cultivating a relationship with cannabis in their regions as cannabis producing regions for the past several decades. And so we're active in the rural areas of California, and we represent around 600 predominantly small farmers, and many of them are multi-generational farmers, and predominantly they're homestead farmers. And so it's a really kind of unique demographic and heritage that we're really seeking to protect and promote. And so the message and the thrust of the film is really incredible, I think, for the communities that we're representing, because we've been behind a curtain for decades. And so to have this opportunity and this platform to really bring our story forward at this critical time, we're facing a lot of challenges with respect to how legalization's rolled out, particularly for small businesses in both rural and urban communities. And so to have this platform and to see really my community on the screen and to follow their trials and tribulations and triumphs has been really incredible, very moving. And I really, really appreciate this opportunity to be a part of what I think is really a movement and the opportunity that, cannabis provides, these underserved communities to really have a voice, have a platform, move forward as entrepreneurs and really benefit, from this new framework that we have. And there's a lot of work to do with that respect. And a lot of what our organization has been focusing on is appellation of origin. And that is a tradition. It's a agrarian movement that was really framed in Europe in comparable circumstances. We've had agrarian communities that were suffering from blight and war, and really trying to hold ground in terms of being small landholders with a unique and special product with market recognition and experiencing things like fraud, and came together and created this legal system to really protect their culture, their heritage, and their place in the market. And so that's been a lot of our advocacy work and policy work over the past 5 years. Origins Council and our predecessor organizations to establish this framework that's really a movement for the legacy farming community to really hold our seat at the table and communicate our story and the values that our community really embeds in our farming practices and our products, and interface with the broader public community and consumer community with an eye for, how this is impacting traditional producing communities all over the world, and how this legal framework of appellation of origin can be a protective and promoting vehicle for traditional farming communities all over the world. So there's a lot of work to do, and it's a really critical moment. We're experiencing a lot of challenges in the marketplace, overproduction, regulatory barriers to entry. And really, I think the release of this film, the timing is critical. And the intersection between the work that we're doing on the ground and the impact that we can have for the communities that are really represented and honored in this film is incredible. And so I'm really grateful to be a part of this effort.
That's great. Thank you. And maybe a question for everybody, and I'd like to start with Chris and Michael. I know the film premiered this spring, and there's only been a few months with the film out, and I imagine you are going to be on a big festival circuit. What's the impact you've seen so far on the film around the different audiences, or the impact that you hope this film will have later and once you have a broad distribution plan? Tell us a little bit about that.
Sure. Thank you. Well, the film had a world premiere at Hot Docs, and that was in Canada. And Mill Valley is actually the U.S. premiere. So the film hasn't really been seen. It's a very exciting moment. It's been getting some great response from the press and from some of the few audiences. My hope is that people really become more mindful about where they get their cannabis from. They become mindful about supporting small businesses. They really think about the history of cannabis and the impacts it's had on marginalized communities. I mean, these are histories that, a lot of people don't think about. Also in my film, I touch upon the queer history of cannabis and how, queer activists in San Francisco really laid the groundwork for the legal industry today. So, I wanted to show women in an empowering light. I want people to think about cannabis differently. I want, people to think about, as we roll out policies across the country towards a national sort of acceptance and descheduling of cannabis, that we're in a moment that we can create policies that are really progressive and unique. And cannabis, since it's been the center of the counterculture movement for decades, what better industry to try to do something different across the country? So, I didn't set out to make an activist film. I found this to be a fascinating topic and the women in the film, but as in the words of Felicia, actually taken from the film, anybody can be an activist. Anybody who uses their voice and tries to elevate a cause or an issue is an activist. You're activated because your soul wants to make a change and see something that's wrong. So as a documentary filmmaker, that's my mission. I just want people to really think a little bit differently and think out of the box.
Yeah, I think you did a great job. Michael, what do you think or have in mind so far for the distribution of the film, or has anybody approached you yet?
Oh, well, yeah, there's definitely a plan. I think that the nature of the content is such that as it is distributed and as it goes out there wider, there's really an opportunity for people to see the reality of this legalization process in California. I think that when a lot of folks, originally heard or, found out, oh, cannabis is legal in California, what they probably envision is a bunch of people in bathing suits on the beach smoking joints and dancing and having a great time. And while that might be a part of it, the reality is that the process behind it is incredibly challenging and fraught with peril. And the processes that were to be in place to enable the transition of the existing small farm culture into whatever the new market would be, those processes were decimated by the regulatory Those processes were decimated by the regulatory implementation. And so unfortunately, where we are now is this film has a job to do. And the job that this film has to do is to educate people about the reality on the ground and drive them to take action to change it. because these things do not get changed on their own. It requires involvement from the public. And so the voice of the people needs to come together and demand change. And so that's why it's incredible to be able to have the film come out at this time and be able to use this platform and media platforms to promote the Social Impact Center and Origins Council, who are the groups on the ground that are doing work to support the challenges that are identified in the film. And so while this is an incredible documentary, it's also the start of a conversation for a lot of folks. And the questions that it raises, we want people to start answering by supporting these organizations that we're talking with today, and in their own towns, in their own places, asking these questions. You know, where is this cannabis coming from? Who benefits when I make this purchase? Is this a fair system? How can I improve things? And so if people come together and make those efforts, then we hope that this is a catalyst for that kind of important social change.
Thanks, Michael. And on that specific point you are making in the taking action, maybe Felicia and Genine, you can help us direct our audience that's really ready to support the actions and the changes we want to see after watching this film. What are the specific things somebody can do, either with work supporting your organizations that you both represent at the moment, or as you said, when you walk on a dispensary? Besides asking these questions, is there any other way to recognize these products that come from small growers, from female-led enterprises, or is there such a thing that is kind of maybe more obvious or not obvious enough to consumers at this point?
Sure. Well, frankly, there's a lot of work to do to educate the consumer. And I think that's a lot of what our organization has really set out to do with respect to building both policy frameworks and market development frameworks in terms of certifications that can really communicate to the consumer. And I think there is an incredibly broad consumer base, particularly in California, that really cares about where products come from and the quality and the care that's gone into their production. And so I think that, you know, the consumer base really having that conversation with the retailer and really, you know, putting the question forward, right? Where is this cannabis from? Who has produced this cannabis? What has informed the quality of this cannabis? I think that consumer-driven effort can be extremely helpful to the bridge that we need to create between the producer community and the consumer community, and making sure that the retailer understands that matters to the consumer. So I think that's one course of action that can really move the cause forward. And with respect to supporting our work, please do visit our website at originscouncil.org. There's the opportunity to donate to our organization. We're a 501c4 organization. And if you have friends or family that are in historic rural producing regions across California, please do encourage any farmers that are interested in entering into the legalized framework or that are participating to really seek out our regional partner organizations and participate in those local trade associations, because change really starts at the local level. We're operating also on a state level and a federal level in terms of engaging with our policy advocacy. And we also have research program that we're rolling out that really focuses on documenting, preserving, protecting, and promoting the unique heritage, practices, genetic resources, all of these sort of elements of value that our rural producing community has stewarded over generations, and that's very much at risk because of the framework that we're operating under at this moment, both in terms of the regulatory and licensing framework and the market conditions. And so those are some direct ways that folks can plug in and really support the communities that, you know, you've really gotten to know a bit here through this film.
Thank you. Felicia?
So I'll start off by saying you can go to the socialimpactcenter.org and make a donation. That's the easiest way. There's also a tremendous amount of volunteer opportunities that we have. We love getting volunteers because talent is everywhere, and I don't turn a volunteer away. Anything you want to bring, contribute, share, we need all of those things. And to just piggyback off of what Genine said. So I obviously live in a more urban area that's densely populated with a lot of shops everywhere. Not as everywhere as it used to. Well, maybe there's still some everywhere. But I think, what she touched on is there's not a lot of education going on. Like, we have a large populace of people here, and there hasn't been enough engagement. There hasn't been enough conversations. I mean, when we talk about the traditional market, the unregulated market, we're still talking about folks who arguably are winning at the game called capitalism. But what's not happening is the safety precautions that are in place with the regulated market. So I say that to encourage, folks who are going to be watching this who do come from the industry, and to actively engage communities that maybe they haven't really done any work in, but to put forth that best effort to start educating people about how amazing outdoor sun-grown plant is, and to be able to do this in a way that opens up new horizons. I mean, I'm fortunate because, like I said, I live in Los Angeles, and we just got our first female Black-owned dispensary. Can you believe that? First. And I mean, Kika has really put together the model in terms of just finding BIPOC community members and when you go into the store, you're only buying from the BIPOC community. So I know that a lot of folks haven't looked at that angle in terms of business models, but I think moving forward, it probably would be the most advantageous. There are lists that exist. I mean, you asked, how can people know? CanOcclusive created a list with an organization you to see primarily BIPOC community members. But I think if we started looking at it in terms of special seals, things that allow folks, and then the key point is education. Mm-hmm. Education costs money. As somebody who's consulted in the cannabis industry for years, like to tell the cannabis industry, what you typically have spent percentage-wise on marketing is not, let me say it one more time, is not enough. Primarily because if you're going to actually bring in those dollars, and I'm not a capitalist. I always tell people, like, I'm not a capitalist, but if I was, I'd be a really good one. And you guys are just missing the boat when it comes to being able to sell this plant. So many people want it, obviously. So many people need it more than folks recognize. So I think, a robust education plan surrounded by people stepping out of their comfort zones.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Felicia. I think you all made the great point of, educate. And I think your film is really going to do that. So I thank you once more, all of you, for joining us in this conversation and for letting us have the film at our festival. We will let everybody know to go to the film website, Lady Bats, and Origins Council and Social Impact Center as well, to find more information and how to participate in the action we want to create with this. So thank you all, and good luck with getting the film out in the world.
It'll be out there. Thanks so much.
Thanks for having us.
Hi, welcome everybody to the Mill Valley Film Festival, to the screening of Lady Bats, the US premiere of this film. We have with us to introduce the film director Chris Russo, producer Michael Katz, and Felicia Carbajal, the subject of the film, that would like to say something about the film now.
Well, I'm so honored to be having the U.S. premiere of my feature film, Ladybuds, at the Mill Valley Film Festival. I couldn't think of a better audience and venue to share a film about cannabis legalization, especially because the region has such a rich history of cannabis innovation, cultivation, and politics. So thank you for having us. I didn't knowingly set out to make an activist film, but this was a story that just felt needed to be told. And I'm really excited for everybody to watch the film, and we'll have a Q&A afterwards.
Hi, I'm Michael. Thank you so much for this opportunity to show this film to you all. We're very excited to be here. We're excited for you to learn the true story of what cannabis legalization has been like in California, and it's not going to be what you expect. And we'll check back in with you afterwards to talk about it.
Hi, everyone. My name is Felicia Carbajal. I am the Executive Director of the Social Impact Center and a proud character in the movie Ladybuds. I'm super excited for folks to be able to watch this film and walk away with a deeper knowledge of the history of cannabis here in the beautiful state of California.
Thank you. And don't forget to watch the conversation we had with all these people after the film. And now enjoy Ladybuds.